SSTUWA members are strongly encouraged to register for the range of industrial and professional courses available face-to-face or online. Find these courses online via sstuwa.org.au/training.
Hello and welcome to Western Teacher Live, the podcast of the State School Teachers Union of Western Australia. I'm delighted to welcome our Senior Vice President Natalie Blewitt, who's going to discuss in some detail the new senior teacher roles that the union secured in the General Agreement 2023. Natalie, it was a really significant win for our members. And it is a process which is already underway, and it is a little bit complex, but nobody needs to worry about it. That's in a nutshell. Now you can give us the details.
Hi, Bob. Thank you very much, and great to be back in the podcasting studio. Welcome back to all our regular listeners, and for those of you who are new, welcome along. Today we're going to talk all things senior teacher. So there's a few parts that I'd like to cover off on today. So depending on where you are in your journey for senior teacher status, these will apply to you. So first of all, I'd like to kick it off with those people who aren't yet senior teachers. So they might be 2.7s, 2.8s, 2.9s on the salary scale, and they're thinking about what happens when I want to become a senior teacher. So this bit is for you. So the thing that I'd like listeners to remember is that we're going to be talking today about a 12-month rule. So when you actually get to level 2.9 on our teacher salary scale, you have to be at that level for 12 months before you can apply to become senior teacher. Now, traditionally we had senior teacher, but now the classification is changing to become senior teacher 1 and senior teacher 2. So those of you who are not quite at the senior teacher level yet but are thinking of applying, remember 2.9, you wait 12 months, you can apply. Now there's different ways that you can actually pathways, if you like, into becoming a senior teacher, and you can find all of that information in the General Agreement. There are 5 different pathways to which you can become a senior teacher. I'm not going to spend time talking about that at the moment, so I'm going to move on to Senior Teacher 1 and Senior Teacher 2.
And Natalie, when you're talking about this process, you can also read all about it in the union's Red Book, which is now available online. So you can log into the website using your membership number, search Red Book and find searchable versions. You can either download a PDF, or my personal favourite is you use what we call a flip book. You read it on screen as if it's the actual Red Book itself. So all of this handy information is there. Now, there will be some people out there, Natalie, senior teachers, who've known that this process is underway and dates are flying around and they're getting a bit concerned. Have I missed the deadline? Am I even entitled to go for this role? So give us a little bit of background on whether dates actually matter and how people will know if they should be applying.
Yes, we have had lots of questions about this one, and there's lots of information that is swirling around out there in education land. Just to touch on what you were saying, Bob, about the Red Book, our General Agreement, the clause that you are most interested in if you are listening to this podcast about senior teachers is Clause 14. That outlines everything to do with senior teachers. But let's take you back to the end of Term 4 in 2024. Now, what actually happened there were emails that were sent to principals and to teachers alerting them to the fact that they were eligible if they wanted to progress from Senior Teacher 1, they could progress from Senior Teacher 1 to Senior Teacher 2. Now, remember I talked about that 12-month rule. This applies here as well. So to become a senior teacher, 2.9 salary scale for 12 months, then you can apply. So we now have, as Bob mentioned, our reclassification of our senior teacher. This was an EBA win through negotiations. Instead of having one level of senior teacher, we now have 2, and this is from the date of registration, which was on the 4th of November 2024 at the end of last year. So we now have a new incremental level, if you like, which is now called Senior Teacher 2. So those people who were already senior teachers and had been a senior for 12 months, there's our 12-month rule. So if you've been a senior teacher for 12 months prior to the date of registration, which was the 4th of November, you had the option of progressing to Senior Teacher 2, which is our new salary classification level. Now, the difference between a senior teacher, senior teacher 1 and senior teacher 2 is that senior teacher 1 means that you undertake one duty on top of your teaching load. If you then want to progress to become senior teacher 2, that means that you are taking on 2 duties. Now, part of the implementation of this and the reason that the SSTU brought this to the negotiating table was because we know that there are so many senior teachers out there that do more than 2 duties. So this particular initiative was actually brought by the SSTU because we wanted to reduce senior teachers' workload. So this gives senior teachers the option to now say, senior teacher 1, I'm doing 1 duty. Senior teacher 2 means that I'm only doing 2 duties. Now, this also has to be done through negotiations. So let's go back to your question, Bob, because I kind of sidetracked us a little bit there with the particular dates. So a lot of people are quite anxious at the moment about the 21st of February. Now, there is a bit of misinformation floating around out there that if your name is not on that bulk upload process, which is the 21st of February, you're going to miss the back pay. Now, that's not exactly true. So let's talk a little bit about the bulk upload process. Now, there are about 7,500 senior teachers who are eligible from the date of registration, which remember was the 4th of November 24. So if you received an email and you were eligible, your name would have appeared on your school list. So you got an email, your principal got an email with the list of senior teachers, eligible senior teachers on that list. Now, the principals of all of our schools need to actually have a conversation with the senior teachers, negotiate the roles, and they need to upload this form by the 21st of February. Now, that's the date that people are a bit nervous about because what happens if I am not on that list or I miss that list or I move schools? Now, if you were eligible to progress to Senior Teacher 2, don't panic. If you miss the deadline of the bulk upload for whatever reason, you would still be eligible to receive the back pay, provided you had been a senior teacher for at least 12 months on the date of registration.
So with that, just for the silly among us, of whom I am the chief, of course, in not understanding the intricacies of schools, all of those people who are eligible should have received an email from the department. What if you're one of those people who thinks, well, I should be eligible, I think I should be eligible, but I have not received an email? What do they do?
That's a great question, Bob. So if you believe that you have been a senior teacher for 12 months or more at the date of registration, you can do one of 2 things. You can get in contact with payroll. Depending on which district you're in, you will be able to contact the particular branch of payroll for your district. You can also send a email through to the information and the contact senior teacher applications, which is information is provided on Icon for that. Now, if you believe that you are eligible, and actually, let's just talk about if you have moved schools, because this has been one of the other questions that has come up. Because the lists were actually sent out at the end of last year, principals actually can't add names onto those lists. So we have a bunch of our members who have contacted us to say, look, I've actually moved schools, but I'm not on my current school list. There's a couple of things that you can do. You can either contact your principal of your previous school and say, look, can you tick me off? I've actually had a conversation with my current principal. We all agree to the 2 jobs. Your principal of your previous school may actually be able to do that for you. Now, the other thing you can do, and this is what I would recommend to anybody listening who has moved schools and is conscious or very cautious or nervous about missing the bulk upload period, you can actually send an email to the Senior Teacher Applications email address, which is listed on the Icon information documents. It's seniorteacher.applications@education.wa.edu.au. And you can actually let the team there know that you were eligible, you received the email, and you are not part of the bulk upload because you've moved schools. But this will actually flag for the team. They can then notify payroll to add you in for when the pay rise and the back pay actually comes through. We would also encourage, if you are a member, which we hope you are, of the State School Teachers Union, to also send that email through to us so that we can actually capture that. And if there are any problems along the way and something happens, then we have that information of the date that you've actually sent that email through to the senior teacher team at the department.
And so it seems to me, again, as a layman, that the situation here is made easier if you can talk to your current principal to ensure that if you are eligible and you've been sent your email, that you are on that list that's going to be uploaded on the 21st of February. And if you're listening to this after the 21st of February, you can still contact direct to that email address that Natalie gave just to check where your situation is. And if you are new in a school and your current principal doesn't have you on the list, it's worth a check with your previous principal to make sure that you're on their list, if you like, or that the information can be shared. The timing of this, I guess, is difficult for people because it spreads right across the holiday period, and we know that there's a lot of transition and movement around within schools. So don't panic is the main message here. If you are eligible and you've received your email, you will get your entitlement. It just might be a different way of doing it. And hopefully for most people, it's that single bulk upload will sort everything out. And the SSTUWA with a mouthful of marbles will be around to back you up should you be having any issues. Now, we talked about one duty or two duties, and I know there's a broad range that could fit in here. And most senior teachers already know what they are, but perhaps a couple of examples of what that extra duty, say for a senior teacher too, might be.
Yeah, so just to pick up too, Bob, about what you were saying with the bulk upload, there's one thing that I haven't mentioned. Once the bulk upload, now remember the bulk upload with so many senior teachers that are eligible, this is the most efficient way for this process to happen. Once the bulk upload has actually happened, if your name is not on that list, as we've been saying, don't panic, it's okay, because what will happen is the department will do a sweep of any senior teacher who they haven't had their confirmation as to whether they want to stay at an ST1 or progress to an ST2. So they will do a sweep, you will be notified, and then you will have that opportunity to say, yes, I'd like to progress to Senior Teacher 2, which is the 2 duties and the pay increment, or you have the option to of staying at Senior Teacher 1, which is what you're currently on at the moment, and only having to perform 1 duty. Just while I'm talking about ST1 and ST2, you've probably noticed on your pay slips that it now says ST0. Now, the reason for that is the process, of course, through Hermes and through payroll, that will eventually change to ST1 or ST2, depending on what you decide you're going to do. Now, remember, you don't have to progress to Senior Teacher 2 if you don't want to. The whole purpose of being a senior teacher are the teachers that are experienced that want to stay in the classroom. And that's a bit of a segue into what you were just talking about, Bob, because we mentioned about the duties. Now, remember, senior teacher, and the reason for this increment is so that we are recognising our most experienced teachers in our schools, the ones that also don't want to progress into admin. So any roles or any duties that you undertake, first of all, you need to negotiate them. That's really important. But the other thing you also need to do is to make sure that it is, if you're working full-time, it might be different. If you're working part-time, it is different. But remember, it should not be taking away your core responsibilities as a classroom teacher. So you need to make sure that you are considering your workload, because, of course, this was also a workload reduction strategy. So it was about recognising our most experienced teachers and also workload reduction. So some of the duties, and they're outlined in our Red Book in the General Agreement we talked about earlier, and the clause here that you're looking for is clause 14.3, and there are 4 examples, 4 dot points if you like, and they include things like providing mentoring, supervision, professional support, counselling and guidance for teachers, and remember this does include our pre-service teachers and our graduate teachers. Now, this mentoring and supervision is about classroom performance, curriculum implementation and resource development. One of the other duties could be developing pedagogy and contributing to curriculum development. These are outlined. I'm reading them from our General Agreement. We also have effectively contributing to the leadership of school development planning and identifying priorities and the formal and to the formal school decision-making process. Now, the last dot point is interesting because this is another duty as required by the principal. So, through negotiations, what works for one school and one senior teacher isn't always going to translate to another school and another senior teacher. We have had requests, as has the department, to can you put out a list of jobs and we can pick from the list. Well, actually, if you go to clause 14.3, they are the duties. That is the list. Because you can negotiate a role with your principal that suits you and your particular context and your particular circumstances. So we won't be putting out a list. I would direct everybody to that particular clause. I'll say it again, 14.3, that's the one that you're looking for, that actually has the duties of a senior teacher.
And again, with that, work reduction is a key here. Now, there'll be senior teachers out there listening to this podcast, I suspect, saying 1 duty, 2 duties. I do about 5 extra duties. So that really is a matter for the member to try and manage, is it? I mean, it's not always easy to go in and say, well, I'm not going to do these 3 anymore, but that's something to talk about, to make sure you are talking with your principal about your workload and what you can do, because at the end of the day, if you burn out, it's no good for you or for the school.
Absolutely. And particularly if you are working part-time, and I'll speak to the part-timers here, you need to make sure that the role that you are negotiating does not become something that you work on the days that you are not contracted at your school site. So it's really important that workload is taken into consideration here, and it could be a very small, simple duty. Other people may want to make something huge, but it's up to the individual through negotiation with the principal. And as Bob said, it is about workload reduction. So really, really important that you are a classroom teacher first and foremost, and any role that you decide to undertake through that negotiation process is the role that you can take on as a senior teacher. It also gives you the opportunity to have those conversations to say, well, hang on a minute, I actually have been doing 5 or 10 different roles in the school. This gives you permission to say, well, actually, these out of the 5 or 10 that I was doing, these are the 2 for Senior Teacher 2 that are most important to me. These are the 2 that I'd like to do. It also would then give other people in your school who may be senior teachers the opportunity to pick up some of those other jobs. And I am aware of a large secondary school that has about 71 senior teachers in their school. So if they all want to progress to Senior Teacher 2, that's a lot of jobs and a lot of duties that need to be found in a school. So it's an opportunity to stop and to say, no, my workload is ever increasing. These are the 2 duties, or Senior Teacher 1, this is the 1 duty that I'm actually going to do. This gives you permission to do that, to have that conversation.
And of course, there are 2 sides to working all these things out. We've got plenty of school leader members as well. So I commend you to check your inbox, because you should recently have received a school leader e-news from the SSTUWA, and a large chunk of that e-news, where we cover a whole range of these new situations following the new general agreement, is devoted to senior teachers, but from the leader's perspective. And the SSTUWA philosophy is to be collegiate and cooperative, so you can work together to identify, for example, in a school with 70-odd senior teachers, which gaps need filling, and there is some guidance there for school leaders in that e-news. So it's not just the senior teachers who will be looking for clarity here, but the leaders. And I think sometimes when you get something this complex, Natalie, it's easy to forget that this is a major win, because this actually does give people recognition both financially and title-wise, which is important for the work that they're doing. But it does say, look, we need to step back, look at who's doing far too many duties and rationalise, so that you don't lose experienced quality teachers in the classroom because the workload issue isn't being addressed.
Yeah, Bob, that's 100%. We know members tell us all the time that their workload is huge. We know that senior teachers, experienced teachers, are walking away from the profession because of burnout and stress and workload. So this is one thing that members can do to cut down on their workload. I just want to come back to the pay, Bob, if that's okay. We talked about the bulk upload process to try and get as many senior teachers processed all at the same time. We talked about what happens if I miss that bulk upload, and as we've said, don't panic. You still have plenty of time to be able to do that. Now, I've also had questions from members. Well, what happens now? When does the pay come through? Well, you can appreciate with over 7,500 teachers and then having to do the sweep to make sure that everybody is picked up who is eligible and wants to progress to Senior Teacher 2, that is going to take some time. So my understanding is that the pay should be coming through by the end of Term 1. Now, hopefully earlier. We all hope for earlier, of course, but by the end of Term 1, this process should be, the bulk upload should be completed and the increase in pay should start to flow through. And as we said, if you were eligible from the date of registration, then you'll get that back pay as well. That leads me on to, okay, well, what happens if I became a senior teacher and I'd been there for 12 months after the date of registration? So from the 5th of November last year onwards. Now, at the moment, if you are eligible or have become eligible from the 5th of November, you can't apply through that bulk upload process. Now, the Department and Payroll, they're working on a system of how you can actually apply. So just hold tight for the moment. There will be an opportunity for you to apply and you won't miss out. So what will actually happen, my understanding again, is it'll be quite a simple process that they're working on, and it should be payroll will notify you that you're now 12 months on, you have that conversation with your principal can sign you off similar to what is happening now, and that information will be sent back to payroll. But you can't do that yet, so just hold on that for the moment. We will come back to you with further information about that, but I can tell you that you actually won't miss out in terms of your pay. So you won't be back pay because you weren't eligible at the time of registration, but your anniversary date will become critical of when you actually became a senior teacher and when you've done, remember, that 12-month rule. So the reason I'm alluding to that is because there is more information about that to come for those people. I can't actually go into too much detail at the moment, but for those people who became eligible on the 5th of November afterwards, just hold tight. We will come back to you with more information. And once that form is available for you, this is sort of like the phase 2 part, then there'll be information that will come out via email. You will also receive an email alerting you to the fact that you can now apply if you want to. Remembering we talked about workload, so really, really important to remember if you are a current senior teacher and have been for 12 months, as we said, that's that 12-month rule, you don't have to progress to Senior Teacher 2. You can stay at Senior Teacher 1. I know I've already covered that in the podcast, but I really wanted to hone in on that point as well. It is about workload reduction. There is no pressure at all for you to progress to Senior Teacher 2.
And there is so much information around this, as you've heard, and you can obviously rewind, listen again, or if you need further assistance, there's a number of ways that you can get assistance. You can contact Member Assist at the SSTUWA, and again, that's whether you're a school leader member or a senior teacher member, you can get help there. You can call them on 9210 6000, 9210 6000, or on 1800 199 073. That's 1800 199 073. You can contact them via email at contact@sstuwa.org.au, and you can go on to our website sstuwa.org.au and you can fill in a form for assistance or do some more research yourself. And remember, it's clause 14.3 in the Red Book, and you can search the Red Book flip book, the digital version, and also the PDF. So you can search clause 14.3 and get taken straight to it. Natalie Blewitt, Senior Vice President of the SSTUWA, thank you very much for giving us such good information on what is a complex process but a fantastic win for members. And hopefully for all you senior teachers out there, whether you decide to stay as a Senior Teacher 1 or you move up to Senior Teacher 2, you will get rewarded for your work and see that workload reduced. So thank you for joining us on Western Teacher Live, the podcast of the State School Teachers Union of Western Australia.
Are you aware of your SSTUWA member benefits? We've got you covered on a range of member benefits from entertainment to insurance and legal. Check out our benefits hub via sstuwa.org.au/benefits.